What was that?
Perfect. You want to be that guy?
Wow. Do you want to be that guy?
Wow. Good morning, brother.
Wow. I understand. The bots are listening.
We got at the Tron, the real data lord, hanging in with us. Good morning, everybody. Welcome to DC TV. My name is Brad. We got Brandon, aka at the real data lord, off to my left. Hope you guys are having a great morning and you had a great weekend. And thanks for being patient with us last week, as we were, many of us, other than myself, were traveling abroad and looking to build more other things related to DC TV and beyond. So appreciate you guys being patient with us on that. But we're back this week and we have some things to discuss. One of those things is going to be, are we in the middle of a potential Bitcoin bull trap? And that is going to be something that we dive into later in the show. But for right now, I'm looking at futures right now, and it is not a pretty picture. The S&P is down nearly 1%. The Dow's down about 0.5%. NASDAQ is also down over 1%, down 141 points. And it's weird going into these earnings seasons as far as that's concerned. If you guys want to go talk more about that, you can go follow me at Own the Chaos as well. Looking at Bitcoin, though, that is also down around 2%. I think it's actually down a little bit more. It's actually down around 3% now. It's down around 708 points. So pretty decent drop on Bitcoin so far. But that doesn't take away from the move that we've seen over the last 6 weeks, 2 months, something like that. So that is going to be something that we're going to continue to discuss. But Brandon, how are you, brother?
I'm feeling good. Honestly, I had a really cool weekend hanging out with Jaime and a whole bunch of cool people I've met. So we were at the Christians Web3 conference and met a ton of people who are really building cool things in the Web3 space. And I want to do more of that. I want to do a lot more of that. There's just cool. So much is happening right now. We're in a renaissance, and I don't want to have my eyes closed.
Yeah, I mean, we talked off camera a little bit about AI, just very briefly, and it's kind of crazy how fast that is also evolving. Just from a development standpoint, it's pretty wild.
It will move parabolic, and people who aren't paying attention, even peripherally, are going to be shocked at the world they live in.
Yeah, absolutely. I've been getting lost in the AI rabbit hole now for the last 3-4 weeks, and it's just every time I think that I'm caught up to speed, something else happens.
Yeah,
it's wild. So
it works like that.
Yeah, and we can talk about that later as well if you guys are interested in that too. But hit that like button if you are enjoying the stream so far. If you guys are just walking through the door, we certainly appreciate that. And make sure you go check us out in our Discord. Link is in the description below. Love to have you guys there too. Looking at a couple of things, if you guys are curious as to what we're going to be talking about later today, North Korea funded a missile program with $1 billion and a $1 billion crypto hack. That is going to be something that we talk about, as well as a couple of other things that I think are worth mentioning. Again, as I'd mentioned earlier, a Bitcoin bull trap. Are we in the middle of one? And what's going to cause that to falter if it does? Or are we not? No, are we actually starting to see a trend reversal? I just talked to Greg this morning too, Brandon, about the difficulty, the mining difficulty, and that's actually ramped up as well. So interesting. We'll chat about that later. But before we get into anything, of course, we got the WTF news of the day. Brandon, I got a good one, I think, today. So
present it or something.
So here is, I'll just present this first. Here is a simple smash window, and you would think, oh, well, somebody just smashed a window, no big deal, right? This is a bizarre story. So a Seattle woman returned home Friday evening to find that a man had broken in and was bathing in a bathtub fully clothed. He broke through this window and then took a bath with his clothes on.
Why?
The woman called police around 7:15 p.m. from outside her home in the 1700 block 34th Avenue in Seattle and reported a burglary after spotting the smashed window. Responding officers announced that their presence at the home and ordered the man to leave the house. After getting no response, authorities said the officers searched the home and found the suspect in the bathroom. I believe this was drug related, but I've yet to confirm. Police described the man as a fully clothed but very wet, and said the officers observed the bathtub was full of water. And that's actually all I have as far as the details of that story. But I mean, can you imagine just like coming up to your house and you're like thinking, oh, it's bad enough, that somebody broke into your home, but they didn't steal anything. They're just taking a bath with their clothes on. Like,
having lived around Boulder, Colorado for a long time, I wouldn't be surprised. I'd be like, hey, look, a meth head,
yeah, man. I mean, like, that's
people
creepy.
get stuck on some weird drugs, and it makes them behave in ways that you wouldn't expect a human to behave. But on the bright side, he's going to save money on washing his clothes, so that's a plus.
Maybe that's what it was. I guess I don't know. Very strange. Very strange.
You want to keep colors and whites separate, though.
You don't want anything bleeding
Yeah.
into each other, for sure.
Yeah, that's a laundry thing, not to be taken any other way. To be fair.
Yeah. All right. So that's your WTF news of the day. Just thought that was very strange, very weird.
That's weird. It's a good one.
If you guys are liking the stream so far today, we certainly would appreciate it if you hit that thumbs up, as well as subscribe if you're not already. We've got a small crowd in here this morning, but I figured that would be to be expected after taking a couple of days off. But I'm sure we'll see more people trickle in. So make sure you hit that subscribe button, hit that like button, and that notification bell as we go live Monday, Wednesday, Friday at 9 a.m. Eastern time. We certainly would appreciate if you guys did that and joined us as well over in our Discord. If you guys want to continue some of the conversations that we're having today in Discord while we're not live, feel free to hang out with us in there. We certainly would appreciate it. So thanks for joining the stream this morning. All right, Brandon. So I am looking at Bitcoin right now, and I'll pull up the chart here real quick. It's very interesting to kind of see how this is all shaping up. So here's Bitcoin at 23,000. We'll just say 23,100, and this is your weekly chart that I have pulled up.
Right.
I would say that there is a potential trend reversal, especially considering we've seen quite a decent bottom form here around the 15,000 mark, 15,400, 15,500, and we've seen it break significant resistances, one of them being that 21,006. It's starting to continue to move up, obviously having a little bit of a down day today. But what I will say is that I think that there is some risk in getting our hopes up as far as a all-out bull move, like the bear market is over, considering we have the Fed that's going to be talking about rate hikes this week. And we all know that they've had a significant impact on not just the price action of stocks, but also the price action of Bitcoin.
I agree. Yeah, I think the bulls are definitely pulling in the upward trajectory. I think they're trying to print resistance more so that can be support later on. I don't think what they're trying to do is truly flip the bottom. I think most people are aware from a macro perspective that we do have the death cross coming up, and also we do have that the halving we're not close to. So typically those type of big macro events will inform what people do with large bags of money. But I'm also not shocked if people are trying to kind of pump fake, right? Trying to catch people off their toes if they're expecting that. So there's probably a few different camps of whales.
Yeah, I mean, I'm thinking something similar. The death cross you're referring to, if anybody isn't familiar with that, is the 200-week moving average we're looking at, and the 50-day moving, or 50-week, I should say, moving average is looking to potentially cross over that 200-day or 200-week, and that's usually that is what we call a death cross, and that could end up meaning that we end up getting a little bit more bearish before things start to turn around. Now, anything can happen, of course. This is just something that we speculate as we look forward and try to see what might happen in the future. But there isn't a whole lot of good things happening that would signify a continued bull run. Now, what I will say is, if the Fed comes in and actually changes their tune a little bit and talks a little bit more dovish, talks about how they're going to maybe pause interest rate hikes or lighten them up. We only see a 25 basis point rate hike this week, and they start talking about lightening things, especially because we've seen some significant announcements of layoffs, right? Like the interest rate hikes are working to what the Fed and things are happening like the Fed had hoped and planned for. There's a lot of people out there that are speculating that perhaps the Fed's going too far, which I think could be the case, as we're seeing inflation also fall off a cliff, and it is now, in fact, peaked back in the summer. So if they continue to go down this road of aggressive rate hikes, that could have an inverse effect, and that they're going to raise them just to cut them. And so I think that there's something to be said for that. However, that could spell good news for Bitcoin in the intermediate term. I don't think if the Fed continues to remain hawkish from this meeting and carries the same tone that they did a year ago, I think that it's going to be really tough on the markets in the short term. But I think that it also creates a significant opportunity, because they're starting to become blind to the fact that they're pushing this envelope a little bit too far. And then by the time they figure it out and something breaks, that's when I think Bitcoin ends up becoming a really good opportunity. Not that it hasn't been already, but I think that could be the big opportunity that we've been waiting for.
Yeah, I think there's plenty of movement to play, some small trades to the upside. That's kind of what I'm focusing on trying to pick up as well. But also, whenever we do see these red candle days, I am, picking up a little bit more positions. So I think that whole DCA approach, that rather the modified DCA that Don Fron was talking about, makes a ton of sense. If the price action doesn't look particularly impressive to you, do DCA, but DCA into a stable coin. That way the money's in crypto, it's put aside. You're still going to put it into a position, but you're not grabbing your position until you have indication that, we've kind of scraped a bottom. So I do think in the long run, though, any trades you make right now, any Bitcoin you pick up, you'll be glad you did. But the question is just what that time frame looks like.
Yeah, I still think, I think the next question that people may be asking is, okay, well, if we expect it to drop off, where do we think that it could drop off on or at? I think that there's potential for, if the Fed comes in and continues to be extremely hawkish, the dollar continues to get stronger, and thus bringing Bitcoin back down. I think that 13,800 mark that we've been talking about since the summer does get tested, and we'll see where that happens. But I think that that's going to be the potential area that it ends up coming down to. Obviously not a guarantee, but it seems to be that area that just makes sense. We have to go all the way back to July of 2019 to kind of observe that area, and as a previous resistance and now a new support. So that's going to be that spot that I'm keeping my eye on. I think that could be the spot that gets tested if we see a significant plunge in the market. And so that being said, long term, I think that we could see, we've seen how Bitcoin rallies going into halvings, and each time we see higher highs. So I think that, last time we saw this, it's just above 69K. I think that this next rally, once we see that capitulatory moment, could end up lending itself to a 100K Bitcoin by 2024.
I think that's in the cards, actually. Just from my research, like if we're following that big S growth curve that Jaime brings up all the time, for the halving cycle, it's not outlandish whatsoever. That's Not even at the top of that band. So
Oops. Actually, just pulled it up.
we got a winner.
I know.
Pick me a winner. Wayne's World.
People wait for it. No, we're not doing it. I was gonna pull up the SCurve, but Jaime's notifications just went apeshit. So I had it pulled up, and that's when it started going off on me.
That's so good.
But yes, the SCurve that we talk about a lot does have 100K in the cards there leading into 2024, which isn't that far off now. We're talking 18 months. So we're talking if it comes down to that 13,800 mark, and we get it to 100K Bitcoin, that's almost 10x.
Yeah, and mind you, top of that S curve in the next movement is going to be like $155,000 per Bitcoin.
Yeah.
And so that's like according to that model, that's the theoretical probability.
Yeah, and so I guess conservatively, I'm saying 100K flat.
Yeah, no, I think that's we'll laugh when we're like it was 20K. I could sell like a car or two and get a whole Bitcoin. No kidding. But it would be like, well, I guess we're all only Satoshi holders now.
Right. Yeah. So good stuff, guys. We'll continue the discussion on Bitcoin and this potential bull move that we're seeing right now, and whether or not it stays or the Fed comes in and kind of ruins everybody's party. We'll have to see. They'll be speaking on Wednesday, and we'll hear their decision and their outlook on 2023, which I'm sure will set the tone for the rest of the year. Moving on, I wanted to bring this up. This is very interesting. So, North Korea, the White House has stated that North Korea has hacked $1 billion in crypto, in a crypto hack to fund their missiles. And I'm a little bit taken aback by this. The White House says that the crypto industry security vulnerabilities allowed North Korean hackers to steal more than $1 billion in the past 2 years, and the U.S. says Pyongyang has used the funds to support its missile program. The claim was made in an official statement, which was reported in South Korea by VOA Korea and Monhua. The White House announced that poor cybersecurity across the industry has enabled North Korea to steal over $1 billion to fund its aggressive missile program. It criticized weak cybersecurity protocols across the industry, claimed that as an administration, the White House remains focused on ensuring cryptocurrencies cannot undermine financial stability, protecting investors, and holding bad actors accountable. The statement added the U.S. Law enforcement agencies were increasing their resources to combat illicit activity involving digital assets. The United States Secretary of Homeland Security, Alejandro Mayorkas, was quoted as stating that the North Korea had funded its weapons of mass destruction programs through its cyber thefts of crypto and fiat to the tune of over $1 billion in the last 24 months. I'll stop there and kind of let you react to this, Brandon. But I'm first of all, I'm not going to say that it's not true, but I haven't yet really kind of seen evidence that they've done this, because North Korea doesn't seem as if they're that sophisticated to be able to pull something like this off. Maybe they are, but what's your initial reaction to that?
Sure. Yeah, I've worked in computer architecture and network security for like the last 15 years, right?
Yeah.
And so we see this all the time, actually. We specifically people, North Korea, Russia, a lot of the STAN countries, constantly trying to attack our endpoints. You'll just see DDoSes. You'll see like spammed password attacks. You'll see a lot of databases getting leaked online, and people use the same passwords or iterations of the same passwords for multiple accounts. And so they do get honeypots all the time. And what they'll end up doing is they'll basically hold it ransom. They'll say, look, we're going to dump all your protected health information online if you don't comply. If you do comply, you can send this much money to this location. And mind you, the people complying have no assurances that they'll do right by them after they get that money.
Yeah.
So there are some times where they pay the person and then that data is never released with confirmation that it's secure again. So yeah, it's pretty scary stuff. And then that's why like you hear me talk so much about operational security on this channel and how like Bitcoin solves this whole issue with this concept called zero trust architecture. And zero trust architecture means I don't have to trust that you're a good guy and you don't have to trust that I'm a good guy. Code is law. It's going to execute properly. And whatever we agreed on is just going to happen. And there's no way to act outside of the system. No one party has a benefit over the other party. So I think that the entire crypto blockchain space is way ahead of the rest of the world's industries as far as that type of operational security goes. But the problem is we have this like nasty cancer in our whole space where people are doing what FTX did. We have this zero trust architecture capability, and instead what we're doing is we're building these centralized systems in between, completely negating the entire benefit of our zero trust architecture capabilities. So it's messy, but if you want to make some serious money over the next years to come, focus on zero trust architecture and how you can support businesses that do because you no longer have to trust them with your data. They can't leak it. They can't screw you over. They don't have the keys in their hand to do so. You do.
Yeah.
And so this happens all the time. And this is nickel and dimed up to $1 billion. This isn't like one hack was $1 billion, right?
Right.
This is a ton of attacks, but
months. Yeah.
this is the whole thing of like people never changing their like Wi-Fi router's password from root, right? You know how everyone's like admin root, it's like your Linksys router password or whatever. It's literally that type of like lack of sophistication in general security that exists all over the place. So you can find what defaults are and you can literally go and just test out tons and tons and tons of endpoints with bots. And if you find some that do hit back, people will double down on that and see what else they can get.
Yeah. To that point, as you see on the screen, guys, this is kind of like a follow-up article on this issue with North Korea. And as I'm reading this, it looks as if there was also this hacking company, $100 million, Harmony Horizon. They were trying to break into crypto accounts by sending out bogus job offers and fake salary adjustment notices. And people click on this stuff, and that's kind of how they end up, breaking in, so to speak.
Good phishing. Yep.
Which is crazy because I find it very easy to spot a phishing email. Every once in a while, I'll spot a phishing email, and I'm like, "Oh, good. This one's actually decent." But most of them are pretty obvious, which I also find like if you look at something that you don't recognize and you don't know, it's kind of like, what are you clicking on it for? I mean, at this time, and it's been long enough that we've had emails out, and the internet's been out long enough to know, like, it just seems obvious to me what phishing emails actually look like.
Yeah, I avoid email in general if I can. Like anybody who really should be communicating with me knows better than that. But email is a protocol that I think has served its time, and there's just better replacements for it at this point. But yeah, there's just operationally, there's just a ton of people who click on links they shouldn't be clicking on, and they think nothing of it because the screen looks reasonable, and they type in their username and password, and unless they have a second factor of authentication, and I've even seen that phished, they get wrecked. So I have seen it though where some people will have a pop-up that will ask for MFA, and it looks legitimate, but people will get the MFA text to their phone or whatever, and they'll type in that code, and that code is actually a phishing MFA prompt too. And it'll then give the bad actors the one-time password that was texted to the person. So it's all about, like, if you have a convincing front end, that's like, the art of the deal, I suppose. So just protect your neck out there. It's getting sketchy.
also can be viewed as relationship advice.
That's true.
The front end can always be convincing.
Yeah.
Oh God.
If she's pretty but crazy, she's pretty crazy. Yeah.
And then the makeup comes off, and then it's a whole different woman.
What a deal. It's not. It's a man, baby.
That was kind of the basis of what I wanted to kind of knock out. We usually, when we have more people here with us, we engage in a lot more conversation with more perspectives. But since we've kind of gotten through what I wanted to get through, I just want to have an open conversation about some of the artificial intelligence stuff. We don't have a whole lot to go off of, and we're going to dive into this a little bit more later on in the week, I think, Brandon. But I brought up to you off camera about the possibility of AI kind of destroying the NFT market from a digital art perspective. Not NFTs in general. We both agree that NFTs as use cases and has plenty of use cases outside of art, and so I wonder if artificial intelligence is really going to destroy NFT or digital art. Now, the reason I say this is because if you guys haven't been keeping up, and this is ever changing, as we said at the top of the show, artificial intelligence is just growing at a ridiculous rate right now and evolving. And you can literally now text to video. And what I mean is that you can text something. Let's just say you could tell AI platform, I want to see a video or make me a video of a beach, and it makes you a video of a beach. And it can be very random. It doesn't have to be a beach that actually exists. It could just be something that it generates on its own, as well as text to photo. You can do the same thing. You want to see a photo of yourself in a Pulp Fiction movie, you can do that. You can ask it to do that, or create something completely original and random. And so I wonder, if that could end up ruining digital art from that's created by humans, or does it actually increase the value of digital art created by humans?
Yeah. I think the first thing to dispel is what AI is actually doing. So AI is not ripping off existing, works of art. What AI is doing is it will look at, just for example, Brad's handsome face, and it'll say, okay, his eyes are this high and this wide. That's the ratio between the height and the width. His eyes tend to move in these ways, and it'll look at the frames of eye motion and say, hey, we've seen a similar pattern to this before. He looks to the right often, or when he does, he scrunches up his nose, things like that. They'll look for like relationships between different events that happen.
Yeah.
And when it does that, it's called training a model. And what that means is it understands a whole bunch of relationships that have relationships to other relationships. And what it can do is, upon a prompting, it can look at all the relationships that exist and decide what relationships apply to that prompt. And it will generate completely new content based on those relationship models that it's trained. And so what it's not doing is it's not copying and pasting images. What it really is doing is similar to like the human mind, how it will look like when you see someone who's painting and they sit with the canvas and they look at like a mountain and a lake, and they'll look at it and then try to paint it. What they're doing is they're analyzing relationships and then trying to relay those relationships through their own interpretation onto that canvas. And so AI is similar to that. And I guess from my perspective, I just see it as another tool. It's going to dramatically change the perceived value of a lot of other methods, I think, though. Reason being, Photoshop did this, right? It used to be you had to pay a lot of money to a photographer because film was expensive.
Yeah.
And you couldn't just go and click and shoot whatever you wanted, because you'd have to develop all that film, and then you'd have to analyze all that film and pick the ones you want. And anything that wasn't good got thrown away. And that was wasted materials, and that added to the cost of the job, right? Plus the time to do that work. So digital photography came out, and now we can click, and just pick the 1 out of 30 images that are actually decent and throw away the rest of them without any any thought. We just throw it away because I got what I needed, right? And even now, like I have to do this a lot when I take pictures of like action moments. I have to take a small video on my phone or camera, and then I'll find the frame I want and I'll export that frame. I'll throw away the rest of the video because I don't need the whole video. I just need that action shot, right?
Right.
And so I think AI is going to be changing how some art forms are perceived valuable, and probably mostly as it pertains to marketing. As it pertains to marketing and things that aren't seen for their artistic value, they're seen for their utility, right? Like, hey, can you make me a logo for my business? Hey, can you make me a banner for my website? People aren't finding artists that inspire them and they just love their work so much. They're typically finding people who can get something that looks professional and can do it quickly. That's usually their criteria.
Yeah.
And so I think that for that type of artist, if they're not using AI, they're going to find they're not going to be price competitive. That may really happen. They may not be price competitive because some guy can generate something that serves the function just as easily through a proper AI prompt and maybe just a little tweaking. But what it's not going to replace, in my opinion, it's not going to replace the like your favorite band is not going to get replaced by AI.
Right.
Because there's so much human touch that goes into that, and so much like heady thought that goes into that the AI isn't you and doesn't have that level of true creativity. It only looks at existing models and creates from that. But like the AI doesn't feel the visceral emotions you feel. The AI doesn't have that knee jerk, you know, that knee-jerk aggression that you might feel at certain things. And great music comes out of those type of deep human emotions. And so I think there's lots of types of art that are not going to be deeply impacted by AI. Mixing and mastering might be impacted by AI. I think an AI could probably mix and master your record better than you could.
Well, it already writes songs,
And they suck, but it can. You're right.
but they suck right now. That's what I'm saying.
It can write commercial music for sure.
Yeah. You know, I understand the human element. I guess I was thinking more along the lines of like, could somebody potentially pay, $1 million plus on a digital piece of art that wasn't even created by a human? And
Oh yeah. Right
what,
now, OpenSea is covered in AI generated art.
but does it get to a point to where it becomes so diluted with AI generated art that which one stands out, right? Like, because it's going to be so easy to create all this crazy looking digital art. Which one's going to be the one that actually gets eyeballs and people can actually see, right? Like, I think it starts to become a very crowded space, and that it's so diluted that it makes really none of it valuable.
I think what this will do is this will remove the novelty. Right now, NFTs, and specifically NFT art, because to be clear, NFTs are the certificate of authenticity. It's not the art itself, right? So uh, what makes an NFT valuable initially was not its long-term use case. It was, hey, this exists and I'm playing around with it. Isn't this cool?
Yeah.
And because there's hype around it, other people are willing to just get in and just buy one because they saw it sell for a certain amount and they think that they can sell it at an increased amount. And sometimes they were right and sometimes they weren't, right?
Yeah.
But it was very speculative and some people were just trying to get rich quick. And from my perspective, I don't know if this is representative of the whole, but the majority of people that I met who were getting really into NFTs, they were in their early 20s. They were in their early 20s and they just saw like, yo, my buddy Kyle is like a dubstep producer and he's like super sick. And he got this like Bored Ape NFT and he flipped it, bro. He like fucking bought an IS 250. You kidding me? Like that's the conversations I've heard though, right? And so it's not looking at the long-term valuability of NFTs as a technology. It's not looking at the fact that we can now tokenize real world assets into blockchain and have blockchain level certifiability that it's the real thing, and it's owned by the right person, getting rid of counterfeiting ideally.
Yeah.
But what we're going to see is that novelty starting to taper off. That's good. The space needs that novelty to chill out, because
Yeah.
that novelty created a bad taste in a ton of people's mouths because there were scams in the space. The amount of people who got into this hype cycle and were like, yo, if we just make a web page, say that we have an NFT project, people can throw their money here and have a pre-order, and then on this day they'll get priority mint, at a special rate or something. And typically they do deliver that, in fact. So when you hear people say they got rug pulled, what they're saying is the roadmap that they promised didn't continue past step one. Because a lot of these projects, some of the ones I looked seriously into, were like, hey, we're going to launch with this 2D art collection, and then after that we're going to have a remix collection, and after that we're going to have a 3D collection, and after that we're going to have an animated 3D collection. And granted, you understand they're just paying 2D artists and then 3D artists and then 3D animators, and that's how they're funding all of that. But sometimes if that first mint wasn't as profitable as they thought it'd be, they don't have the funding to continue that. And so they promised more than they could deliver, and maybe something else shiny popped up and they went with that instead. And that's typically what that means when people say they got rug pulled. It means, some part of the roadmap that they promised, which is why you were bullish on that project. You thought it was going to continue to be more valuable, because once they have the 3D one, maybe that first edition is going to be really, really pricey, like a Pokemon first edition card or something,
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. It's going to continue to I'm looking forward to what it looks like in 6 months, and then a year, and then 10 years, because of just how fast things are evolving. And it's crazy because I'm seeing certain things die as fast as they pop up, which is interesting on like a Chat GPT standpoint, because you have OpenAI and guys, just in case you don't know about this about OpenAI, obviously it's very well known for Chat GPT, but they have other technology in AI that is also up and coming. And one the AI generated photographs and video is also part of OpenAI's portfolio, if you will, of machine learning. So I think they're going to be here to stay. But I've just been looking at, from a content creator standpoint, I have been researching pretty hard on AI editing software and and AI enhancing software, and every time I look into something that somebody else has talked about, either on YouTube or through my research, it's either kind of sort of working now, or it's not there at all anymore. And and so I think that there's going to be a strong evolution of the cream's going to rise to the top, and then you're going to see everything else, like most industries that are up and coming like this, kind of fall to the wayside. But yeah, I'm really excited for this. There's just going to be, I think, a lot of things that also have to work themselves out, as far as like the digital art thing. And I think there's going to be a lot of other things that we can talk about, especially as it relates to Web3 and AI, and I could see an entire metaverse created by artificial intelligence, which is pretty wild to say.
Yeah, metaverse is another thing I think people don't quite understand, because the company that started Facebook, Meta, they started this whole branding that I think is so off kilt. They were like, hey, we'll make a really crappy version of the Wii Fit game and you can be in it. And a lot of people were like, I don't like that crap. Like, I'm gonna go play my Wii. I'm not gonna hop into this. You know what I mean? Like, this thing where you can track my relationships. Get bent, dude. And I think that's not really what metaverse is going to end up being. It's not going to be a crappy video game, a
Right.
crappy version of VR chat, right? And right now, that's really what they're painting it to be. They're like, yeah, it's a crappy version of VR chat. You can get involved now. And you're like, I don't want to do that. Like, VR chat's already weird. Like,
Yeah.
There's a lot of furries in there, and no disrespect to the furries, but I'm not one of you. And I don't want to yiff. I don't want to go yiffing. So, what metaverse is going to be, though, in my opinion, it's going to be augmented reality for the most part. The whole idea of metaverse is whether you're physically there or whether you're virtually there, you're able to experience the space and the people in the location similarly. That's the idea. And so the whole idea is that your brain's synapses can actually be firing as though you're physically in person, emulating the majority of that experience.
Yeah.
Regardless of whether you're in the same building or not. And I think that there's appetite for that. There's appetite for people saying, there's a good energy in the room, and when we hang out and we're able to actually get ideas down, or like a lot of musical bands get this, like if they're physically in person and they're writing together, they come up with much better material or much different material than if they're just kind of like solo hanging out, writing pieces, and then they get on Zoom and they just kind of talk about it back and forth. Like those are different workflows.
Yep.
And your brain is it's engaging differently, and the product that comes on the other side of it is different. It's not the same product.
Yeah.
And so metaverse, I think, is likely to be on that level. It's digital technology that allows people to remotely interact at a similar level of being physically in person from a brain chemistry standpoint. And from my perspective, augmented reality is going to play a lot more of a likelihood in that than a VR headset. I know that I personally don't want to walk around with a VR headset on all the time. It looks too much like the Matrix, right? Where people are just like back in a chair with a VR headset on, and pureed bugs are being, pureed cricket protein or whatever is being injected into their belly through a port.
Yeah.
But the World Economic Forum is literally talking like that. They're talking about like using humans as like human batteries, basically. Like they literally painted this scenario of the Matrix, where like you're basically kept where your limbic system, your pleasure centers are being stimulated, and other than that, you're kept out of real society. Because I think this is the whole idea of like what Rome looked into, bread and circus. But they found the ultimate bread and circus. They found like if you can keep people entertained and keep them fed, they'll stay out of your way.
Yeah.
But as soon as they're hungry, as soon as they're not entertained, they start asking serious questions. And we can't have that because they're getting in the way of our agenda. And we're really seeing these big world leaders talk about the general public that way.
Right.
And as an American, as a constitutionalist, like I can't stand that type of language. I'm like, dude, like freedom is gritty, and you're going to need to deal with it. And if we need to create technology to if we need to create technology to make sure that people are free and can pursue whatever their God-given endowments allow them to, they need to, and we need to protect each other, even if we disagree on how that's exercised. As long as you are respecting other life, liberty, and property, I'm going to defend your rights to life, liberty, and property. But as soon as you come in someone's house and you try to hurt them, we're going to break your legs.
Yeah, I think there's definitely some truth to that, especially when it comes to like China, for example. I mean, they've had this zero COVID policy for the last 3 years, and then we started to see more and more uprisings within the common people of China, and so now they've just listed everything. And so I think there's definitely some truth to that, for sure.
Yeah, Indo saying that augmented reality glasses would be quite helpful. And yeah, dude, like totally the people in space from Wally. Yeah, like and we see this in film all the time, and I'm kind of suspicious. I think a lot of things in film are not just like creative ideas. I really do think it's some people trying to normalize their will and make it so that it's just crazy for you to compare it to that. And
Right.
they can just kind of dismiss it and move along and implement whatever they want. And like, do you really think we're implementing the Matrix? That's crazy. And yet you see them literally casting that same vision. You're like, I do actually. Like, I had doubts, and then you cleared them up for me. So thanks for being so candid.
Right.
Like,
Right.
Klaus Schwab, what a creep. What a damn creep. And I'm actually really hopeful that guys like Elon Musk, just for example, are so viscerally opposed to some of these other billionaire class that are like speaking in these terms. Right? Elon's like, dude, we're not freaking doing that. That's screw these guys. Like he doesn't consider himself on the same level. And I don't think Elon's without his faults and mistakes. When it comes to a lot of this philosophical matter of like technological fatalism. Like if the technology is going to exist at some point, would we rather we develop it first and have more experience with it, or rather the China Communist Party develops it and then we have to catch up to them?
Mhm.
I I I partially see merit in that arms race concept, but the other other side of the coin of that is we may be the ones to usher in something that we have trouble controlling.
Yeah.
But I don't see a way around it. Do you?
No, not at all. I mean, what choice do you have? It's a clear national security issue, and it doesn't matter if it was Canada. I mean, obviously, it makes it worse if it's something like China or Russia or anybody else that we're at odds with, Iran. But even if it was our next door neighbor that was doing this, it's still an issue of national security that they now have leverage over everybody else. Um, so no, I don't think that there is a way around it. I think it's just something that we have to live with and figure out how to navigate through.
Yeah, and I think you see in a lot of scientific technology conversations, there's this concept of like the event horizon.
Yeah.
And the singularity, the point of no return, and the gravitas of a singularity. So these concepts I'm finding to be true, that at some point we tipped the scales and they're going to go to that single point. We have no way of preventing that from happening.
Right.
And, it's like either A, we don't interact with this stuff because we think it's bad. And, some country like China picks it up and we have no answer to it. And we just have to fall in line because they're more powerful than us, arms race style.
Yeah.
Or the flip side of that, we create it. It creates all kinds of challenges within our own country, but also creates opportunities in our own country for those who adapt to it.
I don't think you could convince me that um, the only reason, well, I won't say the only reason, but a very large reason as to why we have allies is because we have the biggest guns and the most money, and that's it. I mean, that's the only reason. I think that we have um, as much pull as we do in the amount of allies that we do, because we are the number one in those two things.
We also have one of the best positioned countries, honestly.
Geographically or geopolitically?
Yeah, yeah. We have all kinds of resources from sea to shining sea, and we have been focused on innovation for longer than most other countries have, without ceasing, because we've had a capitalist society. And whenever you financially incentivize somebody to provide value to a general community, you'll see innovation happen quickly. And the majority of other countries had iterations of that, but I don't think it was quite as free as America's iteration of it. Now, at this point, there's some other countries that probably have us beat, but they're not bigger than us.
Yeah.
There's smaller countries like Malta, for example.
Mhm.
So either way, I think it's just critical for this whole DCTV community to be engaging with one another on a regular basis and helping each other navigate this. And honestly, creating jobs in this space, I think, is one thing I'm really focused on this year. I'm trying to execute really well on a lot of the projects that we started this last year.
Yeah.
And not specifically DCTV, but all of the people involved with DCTV. We've been building a lot of things this past year, and this year is just so focused on executing that and making sure it comes into fruition, and we're able to actually get a good payroll and hire people on and truly co-build and see things that are excellent and should exist, and with clear vision just execute on that properly. So
Yeah.
I'm super passionate about this, and I'm honored to be linking arms with so many other people who have similar visions of the future. We're not just going to sit by and let reality happen to us. We're going to guide it.
Yeah, absolutely. With that, I think it's a good note to end on. And I'm certainly looking forward to some of the things that we're building as well, my man. Appreciate being on the same side as yourself, and thanks to everybody else who's watching as well and giving us the support. It's going to be an amazing thing to see when the 16 of you that are watching right now say remember when. So I'm very much looking forward to that day. But until we do, we're going to go over birthdays. So we've missed a ton of them last week, but that's okay. Today we have Christian Bale, who's 48 years old. I don't know why I thought he was older than that, but he's 48. Kid Cudi is 38. I love that guy.
Day and night.
Yeah. Andy Milonakis is 46. Wilmer Valderrama is 42. Phil Collins is 71. And then we have Tasia Ray, who's 62. By the way, before I get into these titles, I've come across a lot of older adult entertainers, and at 62 years old, do you look back on your life and you're like, damn, like I had some good shit when I was younger, you got grandkids now most likely, and you're like, grandma did what?
I think it depends on your philosophies and value system, doesn't it? You might look back and you're like, what was I doing?
Absolutely. Like, was it grandma was a badass, or is it, oh my God, grandma, but anyways, Tasia Ray was best known for Backdoor Club, Eaten Alive, Fur Burgers, Wet Dreams, and Flaming Tongues too. Thanks, guys, so much for tuning in. Make sure you check out our Discord if you want to continue some of the conversations we were having today. The link's in the description. And we will see you on Wednesday at 9 a.m. Eastern time. Until then, keep calm and huddle on and enjoy the rest of your day.
Fur burgers.
Eating a lot.